Wine and Crime contains graphic and explicit content which may not be suitable for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
You are listening to Wine and Crime, the podcast where three friends chug wine, chat true crime, and unleash their worst Minnesotan accents.
Oh, yeah. We're here, folks.
That felt like a good one.
Yeah.
Cash. Well, this
natural.
is Ep308. So
Yeah, I might be
Should
getting the
be.
hang of this.
Should be getting the hang of it by now, but
finally sinking in.
I'm Kenyon.
oh my God.
I'm Lucy.
I'm Amanda. Oh,
Wow. We're finally getting there. We're doing it, Peter.
it's going too well. Something's
Si
going to
se
go wrong.
puede.
Si
se puede.
Let's just get right into it because
Let's do it.
some of us have shit to do later today.
Ugh, all
Yeah.
of us. Adulting sucks.
It's only chores and errands and things that don't actually get
Bring
accomplished, but you spend hours working towards accomplishing.
It's relentless. There's no reward to being an adult. None. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So-
I know that I
Let's get right into it.
let's get right into it, but I want to get this out first. You know, they talk about like lifestyle creep, where like when your income goes up, then also like your spending habits go up and things that aren't actually essential start to feel essential and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that has happened now that I'm in my 30s. But like, I fucking know that I did not go through this many paper towels in my 20s.
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
Like, why am I constantly having to restock like toilet paper and paper towels and what, like,
Because you live with a man and now
And a baby.
but even before the baby.
It's the man. It's Zach.
It's a lot of the man. The toilet
Yep.
paper, at least, is the
And
man.
that's the man.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot of like restocking. I spend half my day restocking.
I make Bill do it so that he understands the gravity of what he has done.
I
That's
shouted
the
at
trick.
Corey about weaponizing his incompetence last night.
Good. Fuck that shit.
Yeah, it's
real.
not great and it's super real. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Okay, we have a very special fan pick this week brought to you by Hannah O'Sullivan.
Oh, Hannah O'Sullivan.
And Hannah has selected the topic Reformation Crimes.
Mm-hmm.
They sure
And-
did.
We will get to it. But first, what's our wine crime pairing, Amanda, for Reformation Crimes?
Yeah, unlike one member of our team, I did not intentionally misunderstand the assignment, which we will get to. So I wanted to do a pairing that is connected to at least what the fan picker was initially asking for, which was like, as I understand, stories of like reformed criminals.
That is exactly what the fan picker intended.
Okay, so that was what I
Obviously,
went
we
with.
know, if you know me, you know what
Oh,
direction I'm going in.
and I'm
know.
super excited about it. This is
And
your
and what-
homunculus moment.
What prompted my text message last week?
Yeah, Lucy
To
even
be
tried
clear.
to be like, to be clear, she means reformed criminals. And I was like, too
oh,
late.
I know exactly
I'm
what she
clearly
meant.
doing the Protestant Reformation.
Right.
Don't at me.
But it got me thinking about all of the layered and complex questions about, like, what is reform? What does reform look like? What is the end game?
Oh, that's a pretty
Whoa.
bottle.
Yeah.
Nice.
For Reformation. And at least in my case, the end game is like success and not being in prison anymore, which we'll get to. But I just thought, a little red blend would be perfect for today. Endgame, it just gets you pondering, like, what's the point of it all? If
Yeah.
Reformation is the end game, then why is the justice system so built the way
not
that it is?
Rehabilitative, yeah.
Right. And it got me thinking, and then I was like, that is making me think too much about this topic. It must be the perfect pairing.
Can I also say one thing about that label?
Yes.
It's round, and
It is.
It reminds me of what's it called? The squirrel trap prisons.
Oh,
It's like a certain
yes.
design of prison that's round.
You can visit one that's built like that. Maybe it was one of the first ones built like that in Philadelphia. There's a state penitentiary that is no longer open, but you can it's like a museum and you can do tours of it. And Bill and I went and did one. And the audio tour is narrated by Steve Buscemi.
What?
It's an experience. It was really fascinating, but it has like a central hub and then each
spoke.
There's like a spoke off of the central hub that is like an entire cell block.
Is the word for that squirrel trap? Lucy just said that so
It's
the way that
it's squirrel something. Let me look at it. There's also one near Omaha
though.
that is haunted, and I think you can spend the night there.
Ooh. Okay.
Sketchy. But yeah. So she is a French red blend.
Squirrel cage jail. That's what it's called.
Cage jail.
Squirrel cage.
So you were close.
Yeah. Squirrel something.
Basically, squirrel trap.
Yeah.
She is primarily Grenache Syrah Mourvèdre, which is like
my God.
a perfect red
your
blend.
sweet spot.
Yep. She's French, so she's gonna have those like Mediterranean influences. She's gonna have that spice. She's
a
gonna
small
have
beret.
Yeah, she's gonna have a raspberry beret.
A
She's
lot
gonna
of
have
attitude.
some
A smoking
acidity.
habit.
A smoking habit. Maybe
Wears
she'll shave
black.
her armpits. Maybe she likes black and white stripes.
Yeah.
Maybe she's a mime.
Maybe she's a mime. You don't know her life. She's definitely lush. She's rich. She's balanced with some nice acidity. You're going to get some like fruit and berry on the nose and on the kind of the front of the palate, but it's going to be balanced out with some spice that, traditional black pepper. There are a lot of tannins in this. That's going to contribute to that dry kind of like lip smacking. It's just got like tons of dimension.
Which mimes can't do. I mean, they can
Which
do the
mimes,
motion,
they can
but
make
they,
the motion,
I don't
but
think
not
they
the
can.
sound.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. She is also a popper, so you're going to want to grab your XOXO, the Wine and Crime Gals wine key off of our online store, wineandcrimepodcast.bigcartel.com.
We
all
also have
have
other
ours.
merch, but this one's just very convenient to plug.
Yep. I plug it every time.
We have in the background for our Patreon people, you might be able to see my Salt Your Dead bag.
Oh, cute.
Yep. We also have wine stoppers for if you don't finish your whole bottle.
We added those over the holidays, and they are phenomenal.
They're so cute and
So
vibrant.
cute. Yeah, love them. All right, shall we pop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Oh, French pop.
Yeah.
French pop. The end game of this was to get a good pop. Bon pop. And we got it, babes. What are y'all
Nice.
drinking?
Well, I have a migraine aura, so I am drinking a Coca-Cola because it is not alcoholic and contains caffeine, and then I'm gonna chug more water.
Great for you. Love that.
I'm drinking ice water because I am going for a mani-pedi after this.
Losers.
And then I'll have some wine.
Losers. Guess I'm drinking alone.
Sorry.
Cheers, y'all.
Hashtag not an ad, but I caved to one of those Instagram ads for like fancy press-on nails.
I just
So-
took mine off so I could put on a new set.
So like what company have you bought from?
Oh, I just get all of my press-ons from Sally Beauty Supply, and I have like a gel kit at home. I do the whole thing.
You do the whole thing. Okay, I want to not do the whole thing and just strap those puppies on, but they haven't arrived yet. So.
I love getting my nails done, but it is expensive,
Yeah.
and your girl has no money because weddings are crazy.
Yep.
And so I've
Especially
been
your
doing
wedding.
I'm being good with my budget. Like I actually really am, and it's still nuts. Feeding all of you assholes is very expensive.
Well, I don't know your total guest list, but I can only imagine.
Yes.
And that's the biggest cost right there.
Yep, it's not small.
That and the
And it's also
releasing of
not
the doves.
And it
there
better
will
be an
no
open bar.
doves. It is not an open bar. I can't afford it. It's
Rude.
a hosted bar, but it's
Okay.
not. Do you know how expensive a fully open bar is?
Well, a hosted, you know what I mean.
It's
I don't
a
need to
hosted
have
bar.
every option.
No, I can't pay for y'all.
Yeah,
Mm.
but I need booze.
Right. You'll have booze.
'Kay.
Trust.
All
Anyway,
right.
I will have booze right now.
Nice pop.
Yeah.
Cheers.
pop.
All right, Lucy, what is our background and maybe psych for Reformation crimes?
I wouldn't say there's no psych,
Okay.
but
But I wouldn't say there's ample psych.
correct.
Okay.
So, as we discussed, Hannah, our fan picker, wanted to discuss criminals who have been reformed. But as we know for a fact, Kenyon intentionally misunderstood the assignment. God bless her.
I mean, my case ties in.
Okay.
Yeah. I love it.
I love every time you take a deep dive into some history, like weird shit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There are also a couple of different ways to interpret quote unquote criminal reform. So I'll just be talking about reform from a couple different perspectives. And we did have our, prison crimes? We've ranted about this topic a lot.
A lot. Yeah.
So if you don't hear us say anything in this episode, we've probably already said it like 15 times.
Yes. So prison reform is an agenda that seeks to improve the efficacy of the penal system.
Penile.
There's a word called penology. How gross is that?
Luck. Oh. Gross.
Is it the study of the penal system or
Yeah.
is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Of the penis.
Of the penas. Okay, improve the efficacy of the penal system, improve conditions within that system, and also to find alternatives to incarceration. Because the end game, the end goal is to not be incarcerated, I guess. Part of this agenda is reforming incarcerated individuals to make sure that they stay out of prison once they're released. But let's look at criminal justice reform overall. This is from the Equal Justice Initiative. The U.S. has 5% of the world's population, but nearly 25% of its incarcerated population.
That is a fucking bonkers
Yeah,
statistic.
I know. And
Like,
I know we've talked about it before.
I'd heard
but
it.
it's-
Yeah.
Every time it's like, God
It
damn,
blows you away. Yeah.
we really can't do any better.
Mm-hmm.
Our spending on jails and prisons reached $87 billion in 2015, an increase of 1,000% from $7.4 billion spent in 1975.
I was talking with a boomer who I love, a loved one boomer, and they were saying like, well, maybe, like prisons are so expensive. We're paying all this money for these prisons, blah, blah, blah. Maybe we need to cut costs. Maybe they shouldn't be prisoners shouldn't be given 3 meals a day. And this boomer was saying like, I often don't have time to eat 3 meals a day. I just eat 2 meals a day. And like these prisoners have it like cushy. They get 3 meals a day. And I had to be like, I don't think that's where the costs are coming from. I think the
Yeah.
costs are coming from the fact that they are for-profit prisons
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
and like cutting people's food rations is
Isn't
probably
the way.
The food
Yeah.
is not where the money's leaking out from because
sure
if you
isn't.
know what the fuck they eat in there, it's not.
right. It's not expensive
It's
and that's
Moldy cheese on moldy bread.
yeah. I feel like I did get through to the boomer on this particular occasion, I think, because they were like, oh, yeah, they are for profit. That is probably where all the money is going. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
okay.
We're going to get to a lot of this.
Yeah.
Another stat that I read that I don't think I cited was that when all is said and done and all the costs are thrown together and like tallied up, it costs taxpayers closer to $1 trillion every year
Mm-hmm.
to maintain these prisons in our country,
Mm-hmm.
which is fucking crazy. In 1972, there were only 200,000 people incarcerated in the U.S. Today, that number has grown to 2.2 million.
Jesus.
And it's not like people are getting more violent or that our population is exploding to this degree.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We're just imprisoning more people.
Mm-hmm.
And the statement on their homepage pretty much sums it up, and reads thusly. In the American criminal justice system, wealth, not culpability, shapes outcomes. Many people charged with crimes lack the resources to investigate cases or obtain the help they need, leading to wrongful convictions and excessive sentences, even in capital cases. Racial disparities persist at every level, from misdemeanor arrests to executions. The quote-unquote tough on crime policies that led to mass incarcerations are rooted in the belief that Black and brown people are inherently guilty and dangerous, and that belief still drives excessive sentencing policies today.
The whole crack cocaine versus powder cocaine. Everything. I know we've talked about it before, but I'm just flagging things.
The broken windows thing. Yeah. More incarceration doesn't reduce violent crime. Using prisons to deal with poverty and mental illness makes these problems worse. People leave overcrowded and violent jails and prisons more traumatized, mentally ill, and physically battered than when they went in. Today, nearly 10 million Americans, including millions of children, have an immediate family member in jail or prison. More than 4.5 million Americans can't vote because of a past conviction. Like, why is that still...
Well, because
on the
Republicans
books?
know exactly it's there on
I
purpose.
know.
Yeah.
I know it's
be.
by design, but like it's so fucked up.
Yeah.
And each year we lose $87 billion in GDP due to mass incarceration. The existence of our prison system and the perception of public safety is predicated on the idea that a person can change and turn from a criminal into a non-criminal.
Although I don't even really think that it is anymore. Like, I really think that maybe that's never actually been the case, and that is just the propaganda line.
It totally is the propaganda. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it was never meant
relates
to do that.
the perception of public safety.
Exactly.
It's all about perception.
right. But prisons have always just been like a place to punish and
Dump.
park
Yeah.
mostly
In this
poor
country,
people.
yes, but
Yeah.
in around the world, that is not the case in every place, which is where I'm getting to it. It's a hope that exists for people outside of the prison as well as inside. And this next part is from an article from USA Today, which was written at the beginning of Trump's presidency. The question of whether people change is central to the criminal justice debate that has shifted so rapidly between the Obama and the Trump administrations. From Trump's comment during the final presidential debate about bad hombres. God, that seems like a long time ago.
Yeah, right? Doesn't it?
Yeah.
It was.
There have been...
I've
That
lived
last
1,000
debate-
lifetimes since
Yeah,
then.
that last debate would have been what, 2015?
Yeah.
And we're coming up. We just entered 2023.
It would have been in 2016. But yeah.
The debate?
The debate was in 2015. She's right.
Yeah. Because then...
the presidential debate would have been right before the election. Would it not have been?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
but the election, he was inaugurated in January of 2016. The election was in November of 2015.
The election was in 2016.
Oh.
Was it?
Yes,
And he didn't take office until 2017?
correct.
Oh,
She's right. Lucy's right.
Yeah, I just really melted that.
I'm telling you, time is
Away.
an absolute illusion, and this feels like 25 years ago, at least.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Ugh.
So from that shit, whenever it was, to Attorney General Jeff Sessions' plans to prosecute and lock up even more than the 2.3 million we have in federal, state, and local custody right now.
Well, they've been making good progress with like half of Trump's cabinet and inner circle. So
yeah.
they're doing numbers.
This administration, meaning the Trump administration's message is clear. Criminal defendants don't commit bad acts. They are inherently bad actors who need to be incapacitated through incarceration. Trump has said this often in interviews, and once when he fired someone on The Apprentice, quote, "People don't change." Except that they actually do. Empirical research shows that people can and will change not only their behavior, but also their personality if targeted with the right intervention. Researchers at the University of Illinois performed a meta-analysis of 207 studies and concluded that people can change maladaptive base personality traits in as little as 6 months if they get the proper intervention.
If their needs are met, then they don't have to do XYZ to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously this doesn't count. Like, this isn't true for everyone.
No,
These
some people are literal psychopath serial killers with
Right.
like deep-seated compulsions who cannot be healed.
This is
A
a
lot of, like-
statistical analysis.
Exactly.
A lot of like abusers, the rates of actually reforming like domestic abusers are really,
Who are mostly
really
cops.
bad. Yeah. But
So-
some people can change, especially
Absolutely.
if the crimes were related to circumstances and poverty and lack of opportunity. And
Right, which in the vast majority of crimes that like people are imprisoned or awaiting trial for are exactly that. It's like a lot of petty theft, drug-related charges,
right.
traffic stops, violations, things like that, where it's like a snake eating its own tail. Like you're going to keep getting pulled over for the broken tail light
Right.
if you don't have the fucking money to fix the tail light.
And you'll have
then
less
you get a
money to
ticket
fix
every
the
time.
tail light because you're
Mhm.
paying your tickets.
Yeah.
And then
It's
you
just
can't
a-
make it to court because you don't want to drive your car with the
Exactly.
broken tail light.
Yeah. All of the things.
I kind of think of it as like similar to depression,
Mm-hmm.
where there's like you can have like situational depression, like say when you finish grad school and you have a ton of new debt, but you can't get a job.
And no opportunities.
And that's situational depression, and then it lifts when the situation is ameliorated. Or
Right.
you can have chronic depression, which can, be helped with medication and other things. Or sometimes it's severe depression and it can't really be helped with a lot of those things.
Mm-hmm.
It depends.
Yeah.
Next.
Those crimes that you were talking about, like a busted taillight or a drug offense or a DUI or whatever, those actually have a pretty high recidivism rate, which is what you were saying, as compared to violent crime, which actually
Right.
has a much lower recidivism rate.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I feel like sentences for violent crimes are usually a lot longer, so your opportunities for getting out and then reoffending and going back into prison are like
Mhm.
lower, just because you're
Mm.
more likely to be in prison longer. And the older you get, the less likely you are to reoffend in general, just across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
So there's that. There's a lot of statistics and a lot of theories, but it is hard to like compute and analyze this in a really like holistic way.
Right.
Whether incarceration is the proper intervention for everyone is debatable. Criminal justice is the only sector which measures its successes by counting its failures, which is sort of what Amanda said earlier. Recidivism, which again is reoffending by someone who has been disciplined for breaking the law, is measured differently across jurisdictions. The National Institute of Justice reports that 76.6% of released prisoners are rearrested within 5 years, further supporting the idea that many caught in the system are incapable of change. But the flip side of the recidivism statistic confirms that 23.4% of ex-offenders reformed themselves.
Mm-hmm. And also just like being arrested and like being caught doesn't necessarily mean that you're committing more crimes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you might just be more likely to be caught because
You might be in a more heavily policed neighborhood. You
Yeah.
might, like there's
like
so
plenty
many
of
circumstances.
plenty of people commit a lot of crimes
every day.
every day in a row and don't get arrested for them and don't get caught. That
You
doesn't
might
mean they're not
have-
committing more crimes.
Right.
You might have lost your job because of a previous incarceration, and then you're more desperate because
Yeah.
you're not employed, and then that leads to
Mhm.
just more and more. It's a
Or, like-
snowball effect when it comes to these public order type crimes.
Right.
Or like when you are caught, you're more likely to actually be arrested and charged because you have a previous conviction on your record
Exactly.
instead of like, oh, well, just like a young kid making a mistake and give them another chance.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and certain things are criminalized as part of like your parole,
Mhm.
where like Lucy mentioned if you lose a job, it's like that could be a violation of your parole to not be working.
Mhm.
And then you have a conviction on your record and it's hard to get a new job. And now you are a criminal just for being violating
unemployed.
your terms of release for being unemployed. Same thing with housing. It can be harder to get housing, but it could be a term of your parole that you need housing, but then you can't get housing with a conviction on your record, and then the act of literally being unhoused is a criminal act. And now you violated your parole and you're going back to prison. Like, how do you fucking ever get out of it?
So this cycle is a apparent lack of any kind of reform in this country. So misperceiving crime as a lack of character rather than a suspension of it will continue to impede justice reform efforts under the Trump administration. Many perpetrators had their normally law-abiding nature hijacked by drugs or illness. 80% of offenders abuse substances, and about 60% of arrestees test positive for illicit drugs.
And there's
upon their
literally nowhere
arrest.
for them to turn. Like, the wait times to get into any kind of treatment program are absolutely absurd. And you have to already be clean to, like, get into a lot of the treatment programs, which I know we've talked about before, but, like, that is fucking absurd.
More than half of incarcerated people have been diagnosed with mental health problems, and some exercise just bad judgment in pursuit of an illusion or an opportunity or something. Like, you can just fuck up. You don't need to be fall into any of these categories. You can just fuck up. So these prisoners don't need to change. They simply need to revert back to who they are with interventions designed to help them achieve that goal. So what does rehabilitative incarceration look like? And this is from an article by the National Bureau of Economic Research that compared average sentences and recidivism rates in the U.S. versus Norway. So in Norway, the average time spent in prison is a little over 6 months, which is similar to most other Western European countries. This contrasts with the average U.S. prison time of almost 3 years.
Jeez.
Which is in large part the reason why the United States is an outlier in its incarceration rate compared with the rest of the world. Norway places low-level offenders in open prisons with more freedoms and responsibilities than in U.S. prisons, and high-level offenders in closed prisons with more security. So this provides more separation between minor and hardened criminals, and that does not exist in prisons in the U.S.
Well,
these
it does,
poor
like, a
kids
little
sitting in-
bit.
Yeah, but then if you think about, like, we just did Rikers Island crimes.
Right.
These poor kids sitting in fucking Rikers waiting for a trial date because they couldn't afford their bail or some bullshit.
There's a lot. It really depends a lot on the jurisdiction and also on your means. I mean, wealthier people can afford representation to
Get 'em in a
argue
better
their
prison.
way into a better and lighter prison that is, less violent and whatever. And poor people don't have those means. They end up going to a more violent, kind of chaotic facility. Then they get into more trouble for getting involved in violent acts in prison, probably that they didn't want to be involved in the first place.
Yep. So yes, it's possible in the U.S. for it to shake out that way, but for most people, that's not what happens. But that is the way that it works overall in Norway. There is no overcrowding in Norwegian prisons and better personal safety, with each prisoner being assigned to their own cell and a higher inmate-to-staff ratio than we have here in the U.S. Prisons in Norway also offer well-funded education, drug treatment, mental health, and job training programs. Finally, Norway places an emphasis on helping ex-convicts integrate back into society with access to social support services and active labor market programs.
And I know a lot of folks listening to this are probably thinking, like, well, Norway is so much smaller than the U.S. and their population is, like, again, this is a smaller scale, which I understand. Like, the country of Norway has about the same population as, like, the state of Minnesota. So, like, yes, that makes an impact, but this is not so much about population size, but about resource management in their, like, whole framework of their justice system. And, like, considering how much money goes into, quote unquote public safety in prisons in the United States, it's not that we don't have the funds to put them into these types of practices. It's that the people who privately own the prisons still stand to make too much money from the situation as it stands.
Yeah, this is from an economics journal. This is about the data.
Yeah,
we
the
spend
numbers.
a lot more money per capita on our prisoners than they do in Norway.
Correct.
And they're
Well, they only get 2 meals a day over there.
Oh, right. It saves them so much money.
But that's what's so crazy is that like the resources that we're providing people are infinitely worse, and we're spending infinitely more, similar to our healthcare fucking system.
So among their other findings includes this. The reduction in crime is driven by individuals who were not working prior to incarceration. Among these individuals, imprisonment increases participation in programs directed at improving employability and reducing recidivism, and this ultimately raises employment and earnings while discouraging criminal behavior.
Yep, because their needs are getting met.
If you go into prison, you don't have a job in the first place, which
Or a skill.
could have contributed to the reason why you're in prison.
Yep.
You are way fucking more likely to get out and have your training and get a job when you are released from your average 6-month stay in prison.
And I don't know what their legal framework is in terms of hiring folks who have criminal records, but if it's less
sounds
intense
like there are
than it
job
is here.
placement programs.
Right.
Right, that's what it said.
Yeah. So like here, we quote unquote have programs like this where you can learn a trade or get your education and then, work with, get some like aftercare, quote unquote, leaving prison, but there's vastly underfunded and under-resourced and understaffed,
And a lot of
considering
places
we have
won't
a
hire
booming
people with
prison.
convictions.
Exactly. So even if they did have access to those like post-incarceration pairing resources, maybe the only place they have to go is like home with their families, and it's in a smaller community where they don't have as many resources. I don't know. It's just there's so much involved in this.
People are sent to a specific address, like they have to be at a specific address during their parole, and if they don't have access to transportation or to opportunities within like a immediate range around that address, like what the fuck are they gonna do?
So just a little bit more. The effects of incarceration for this group are large and economically important. So this group meaning the group that did not have a job when they went into prison. Imprisonment causes a 34 percentage point increase in participation in job training programs for the previously non-employed. And within 5 years, their employment rate increases by 40 percentage points.
Wow.
At the same time, the likelihood of reoffending within 5 years is cut by 46 percentage points. And there is a decline of 22 in the average number of criminal charges.
Wow.
So, like, it's insane how
immediate those results. Yeah.
And immediate they're,
you educate people and you give them some opportunity, and guess what? They're gonna
have to
make
sell
use
drugs
of,
or hold up a gas station or
So,
and obviously, this isn't true for everyone. Like we said before, like I understand if you own a business, you don't want to hire someone with a violent criminal record, like a rapist or whatever. Like I completely understand that you want to make sure that like your safety, your family's safety, your fellow, like your coworkers and employees' safety is taken into account. But we're not talking about those people. We're talking about nonviolent offenders or crimes that
the vast
have
majority
been deemed, violent or penalized as if they were violent, but really, when you look at the facts, don't actually constitute a violent crime.
Well, and at least from my experience working in like restaurants, a lot of the time we will hire folks with a criminal record, but like even if you're given that information, you don't necessarily have like the details on the nuances of their record. And so you just have to make, like, employers are also not provided with information to make a nuanced and educated decision on who to hire. And so we may be saying no to folks who deserve those opportunities because we have no clue.
Yeah, it's just, you just check a box and then nobody's going to look once that box is ticked.
And so imagine being required to tick that box because you were 15 and selling drugs to survive. And then that's on your record for fucking ever.
When somebody else who had power over you was committing a more violent crime. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I have one more paragraph, and this relates to a bunch of shit you guys were just talking about. It should be noted that Norway's prison system is expensive. However, prison reform is more affordable than it may initially appear in the United States and could even save money if prison sentences were shortened, which they fucking should be. The U.S. is an outlier in incarceration rates with sentence lengths that are roughly 5 times longer than the international average. Our calculations suggest that a European-style prison system with its higher costs but shorter sentences would result in significant U.S. cost savings. Moreover, to the extent that prison increases post-release employment, this would indirectly reduce expenditures on safety net programs and possibly increase tax revenue. I don't know why it wouldn't.
Yeah, because you're paying taxes when you're employed. Yeah.
And while it's difficult to monetize the benefits from fewer crimes being committed, the gains from reduced victimization are likely to be large. So from an economic standpoint, like, it makes total sense to not do this way we're doing it.
One of the barriers to that, which we've already talked about, is the for-profit nature of a lot of our prisons, which means that there are literal, like, fucking lobbyists and fucking shareholders trying to make money off the backs of these people. 2, there are companies that make money from, I don't even know if you'd call it subsidized, from fucking exploitative labor from prisoners.
Totally subsidized.
Yeah. So that fight any kind of reform. And then lastly, there are a lot of communities where there's a large prison facility and there are a lot of jobs opportunities to be a guard, to be a, whatever. Mostly guards, but I guess like cooks, whatever.
There's all sorts of like admin stuff.
Yeah,
and
administrative, whatever.
Cleaning and
those communities don't want the prison to be shut down because
their only source of income for the whole community.
Right. And obviously, like, if we did a massive change and you could provide opportunities for people in that community to do more like social work type things or like job training programs, then there would be other jobs for them. But it takes more education to do that than it does to be a prison guard.
Yep.
So anyway, that's my segment.
Phenomenal.
Welcome to
Very
our comedy
informative.
podcast.
Yep. It's important shit to discuss. And I'm glad we're discussing it.
All right. Well done.
Thanks.
I just want to say that my case weirdly fits. And it does involve someone trying really hard to get out of prison and getting out of prison for a little while and then being sent right the fuck back.
While you dive in, I'm going to enjoy a stroopwafel.
Oh, damn. I want a stroopwafel.
Well, get some.
Okay.
Get some, bitch.
Fucking get some.
Bitch, you
Get
should have
your
gotten
own.
some. Okay.
Sounds like a you problem.
Thomas Fickle Cranmer. That's not actually his middle name, but it fits.
Okay.
What?
Give him a name.
I was just trying out different middle names. Thomas Danger Cranmer
Yikes.
was born in 1489
Oh,
in
banger of a year.
in Aslicktown.
Ass liquor.
Asslick Town.
A small village in Nottinghamshire, England.
What?
What?
Are you going to do geography?
Oh my God, how did I forget to do geography? I think I got distracted by Aslickton.
Do it on the fly.
I'm gonna, during the commercial break, I will catch up and do some
Wow.
geography and
Okay.
derail your case with it.
Great.
You know what
Okay.
joke we didn't make for photography crimes?
What?
Photography! It's time for photography.
Yeah, we didn't.
Well,
Opportunity lost.
a week late.
Damn. Oh, that stroopwafel looks good.
Yeah, it looks fine.
Okay. So Thomas was the second son of, wouldn't you know it, Thomas Cranmer and his wife Agnes.
Thomas Danger the First.
Thomas Cranmer the Elder was of modest but sufficient wealth to leave a comfortable living to his oldest son, not Thomas, John,
Wow.
who inherited
Just
the
be
estate
not Thomas.
when their dad passed away. This
Got
is my
it.
son, not Thomas.
Oh, who's your favorite?
Not Thomas.
Not Thomas.
So young Thomas was only 12 when his father died, and it was then decided that he and his younger brother Edmund would pursue careers in the church. So that's just kind of how it worked for like a millennia up until modern times. The first kid got all the money, and then the other kids had to become priests or something.
Yeah.
And so at 14, Thomas left home to attend Jesus College.
Same. I left college to attend Jesus College.
Which sounds very legit.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus College.
Jesus College.
It's one of Trump's many universities.
Jesus Online.
You can get your diploma in 60 minutes or less.
Oh my God. Luck?
So here he studied logic, which I think is a bit tough for the like he performed miracles crowd.
Yeah. At
But hey,
Jesus College.
I studied logic at Jesus College. Sure you did.
Oh my God.
Wow.
I want to major in logic from Jesus College.
And then take your postgrad at Havrad.
Oh, and I will be buying all the college merch.
Oh, yeah.
All of it.
Also studied classical literature and philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
He would later state that, quote, the marvelous, severe, and cruel schoolmaster that he studied under, quote, instilled in him a permanent uncertainty and pliability.
Okay.
So basically, he said that he just had a really fucking mean and cruel and abusive teacher. And so
I was really scared of him, so I did well because I didn't want to die.
But now I'll never be sure of
felt
myself.
Safe, basically, he basically saying I never felt safe, and I just had to like roll with whatever he wanted, which would serve him sort of well in his life, and we will get to it. Being very adaptive.
I always say you gotta break them all the way down.
Yeah,
before you can
you
build them back
say
up.
That?
Yeah,
like children are like clay to be molded.
God.
Yeah. And seen and not heard. You never hear Clay mouthing off.
Yep. Thrown on that spinning table and soaked in water, and then you can do what you want.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Okay. Nonetheless, young Cranmer remained at Jesus College for 11 years.
Thomas Cranmer of the Cranmer Cranmers?
Of the Thomas Cranmers?
Of the not Thomas Cranmer Cranmers?
Of the Cran Raspers Cranmers?
I'm more of a Cran Apple girl, but...
Oh, I'm a Cran Raspber.
I'm a Cran Raspberry. Sometimes a Cran Mango, a Crango, if you will.
Oh.
Crango.
So, I don't think I've ever seen a Cran Mango. A Crango.
Crango.
Your eyes
God.
peeled. It's got the yellow banner on the label.
I do love a dried cranberry in a salad.
Oh, a craisin. Cranin.
With some blue cheese, some walnuts.
Mm.
Okay, so he at Jesus College, he earned his bachelor's and master's degree, and then he was given a fellowship at the school. Sometime after he finished his studies, though, he married a woman named Joan. And this next sentence that I'm about to read has something special for both Lucy and Amanda in it. So tag yourselves.
Okay.
Not much is known about Joan. She is described by the Encyclopedia Britannica
Lucy's tag.
Whoa.
as, quote, a relative of the landlady of the Dolphin Inn.
God damn it.
And the Dolphin Inn was located on Jesus Lane.
Ew.
Jesus.
Slit lane. Vaginal slit lane.
Ew.
Jesus, my vaginal slit, not Thomas Lane.
Yep, nailed it.
Just when I think that most words have been strung
Tag
together
yourself.
in a sentence at some point in history.
A relative of the landlady of the Dolphin Inn, which was located on Jesus Lane.
I know. The Encyclopedia Britannica.
That is like a sentence I would keep in my back pocket if someone was like, create a unique sentence that no one has ever said before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just say that.
Yeah, the relative of the landlady of the Dolphin Inn, located
which
on
was-
Jesus Lane.
It's a word salad.
It's
Yeah.
Mad Libs in a sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even though Thomas was not yet a priest, his choice
I'm not a
to
girl, not yet a priest.
his choice to marry required him to resign his fellowship position and give up his residence at Jesus College because, like,
Slut.
you can't.
Slut.
Slut.
Sluts can't
married.
graduate from Jesus College, you
Yeah.
slut.
Yeah.
Silly slut.
Actually, we'll get
Fucking-
we'll get to the sluts.
Fucking not Thomas, the slut. He's officially called Not Thomas to me, and it's all one name. Not Thomas John is all one name.
The Thomas.
Not Thomas the
Thomas.
slut.
Not Thomas John, the slut.
Okay, so
Fucked his way out of Jesus College.
Ew.
he fucked his way out of Jesus College,
did,
right
actually.
right onto Jesus Lane.
Oh,
And,
never escape.
And yeah, so he loses his spot at university because he chose to get married. But then Joan conveniently dies in childbirth not
Oh,
long
my
after the
God.
marriage.
What a waste.
Marriage used to be so
Short.
awesome. It was like not
Short.
a long con. Yeah.
Kenyon says short. Amanda
No,
says
but that's-
awesome.
That's literally why I'm saying it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was not a lifelong commitment.
No,
You
it
said
was
to
like
outlive
15
the
years
idiot next to you.
max for most people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Bring back traditional marriage. Make marriage short again.
Make it the Dark Ages again.
Yeah. Make America Reformation again.
So
Marriage is pretty low stakes.
yeah, somebody was gonna die.
Like
Nose
immediately.
Nose go.
Also, I have pictures on the drive. Obviously, they're not pictures, but they're
Photographs.
portraits. So I feel like it's
Wow.
worth seeing some of these people.
Not Thomas is a mess.
He looks just like Ben Affleck.
Okay,
Oh,
so
Ben Affleck at the Grammys.
that's what
Just
I was.
never been more upset.
It's giving Ben Affleck at the Grammys. Look
Yeah.
at the photo, Thomas Cranmer 2, and then look at the
Yeah.
photo I uploaded of Ben Affleck at the Grammys.
Oh my God, you did?
Wait. Wait, are you fucking... I thought you just independently made that joke?
Yes.
I said he looks like Ben Affleck.
And I said he looks like Ben Affleck at the Grammys. I hadn't scrolled
I was
down to your
prepped for
picture.
that. I was
No
gonna make
way.
that joke. I have the photo on the drive.
He looks just like Ben Affleck at the Grammys.
That's
Like-
amazing.
Out back smoking a cigarette, Ben Affleck. That's
Like,
my favorite
There's
meme.
literally... Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
No, that's first of all, the three of us clearly share a brain. Second of all, he does look exactly like miserable Ben Affleck at the Grammys.
The rounded
I
like
can't.
chin, the pouty
Yeah.
chin.
His bucinator is not broken.
He's pouting.
He's not...
She's
He's not having a great time. There's also a photo of then versus now, Archbishop of Canterbury. And you can see just how far we've come.
There's the
sleeves.
same. Corporate wants you to find the difference between these two pictures. They're the same picture.
Like this was in 1545 and 2021.
They literally only took off the scarf of the outfit and
Yeah.
the silly hat. Everything else is the same.
Tom Cram too just looks like he's about to burst into tears.
Well,
He looks
he had a lot
really
to cry
upset.
about, and we will get to it.
Oh,
Great.
Okay, so he's kicked out of college because he gets married. Joan dies in childbirth. He's like, sweet, I can go back to Jesus College.
Oh my God.
no, because he fucked her.
Sweet. They never fully stopped enrolling me in Jesus College. I
Yeah.
still have my student ID. Let's go.
All my credits
Amanda at
still
Hamilton.
Yeah.
I still have my Hamilton ID. Let's get a discount.
It's graduation
God.
day. Where's Amanda?
I would not have been surprised if you had been the MC of our graduation.
That would have been fucking amazing.
Okay, so he's
Kinda
reinstated. He then begins studying theology in earnest, and one source describes him as, quote, a man of immense, though not very original, learning.
Ernest goes to Jesus College.
And in 1520, he is finally ordained as a Catholic priest.
I mean, same, but I just did it online. Loser.
You're not a Catholic priest.
The fuck I'm not.
Marry people.
The fuck I'm not. I went to Jesus College online. I got my degree in under 60 minutes, and I can perform
And you have a last rites box.
miracles. I do have a last rites box.
You're basically a
and
Catholic
sashes.
priest. Yeah.
And sashes.
Fucking come for me. Come for me.
Okay. So this period in time, though, it's around the year 1520, was an incredibly tense time in British politics. We're not going to get into all of it, but short version, Henry VIII is a narcissistic psychopath.
Trying to make up a new
all-powerful.
religion so he can fuck more bitches.
Yes, pretty much. He had been married for a long time to Catherine of Aragon. And initially they were happy and they had a baby named Mary, but then she kind of gets old and she can't give him a son, even though we now know that
she gets
that's
old,
not how
so
that
she's
works.
like 16 or 17.
Yeah.
She can't
She's
give
like
him a son.
30 something.
What a
Rolling hard,
hag.
put away wet.
Yeah.
What a hag.
And he gets the hots for Anne Boleyn, but she's holding out because she wants a ring and whatever. So Henry needs to go to the Vatican to get an annulment.
After
And the Vatican
many
is-
years and a child.
Yeah, they'd been married for like 20 years. And the Vatican was like, fuck no. And part of that was because it was just like stupid on the face of it. And part of it was because they were trying to kiss up to Catherine of Aragon's relatives. Anyway, okay. So in 1527, after completing a Doctor of Divinity degree, Cranmer was assigned to assist with the annulment proceedings, like trying to get the Pope to agree to this fucking annulment. But first, he's just like one person in this big delegation, all working on this for years. In 1529, there's a little blip. He leaves Cambridge. He goes and stays with relatives outside of London because there's a fucking outbreak of plague in the city. And so he's trying to not get plague, which is exactly what a priest should do. Just flee from
That's what they
the
all
needy.
fucking did.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like in another life, I'd be like, wow, can you imagine what that would be like? And now in a post-COVID world, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
just living every day of my
Oh.
life trying to avoid plague.
He left Brooklyn and bought a farmhouse in the Catskills. Yeah.
Can't blame him.
Got it.
Hi, Kenny.
Speaking
So-
from someone close to you by chance?
Oddly specific, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
But not even just Kenny, like 4 other people I know did that.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So at this point in time, Cranmer becomes personally acquainted with Henry VIII, who had also gotten the fuck out of London to avoid the plague, and they live nearby each other in the countryside, and they become
They're
friends.
buds.
Yeah.
They're brewing beers together, hating on their wives, their ex-wives, their dead wives.
Drinking beers in the driveway,
Drinking
their
beers
respective driveways in the
Drinking
cul-de-sac.
beers in the garage. Yeah.
So Cranmer also spent time during this trip with 2 of the king's other close religious advisors who were also working on this whole annulment fiasco, Stephen Gardner and Edward Fox. And the 3 of them spent long hours discussing the case and decided that rather than appealing directly to Rome for the annulment, which they'd already been trying to do for years and was not working, they decided they might have better luck traveling around Europe and interviewing other religious scholars and trying to build a legal case
Here we
that,
go.
quote, the king exercised supreme jurisdiction within his realm.
Okay.
So they're just trying to like completely upend centuries of how Christian Europe worked.
How it was done.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
So the men gained approval for this plan because they were trying to help Henry fuck Anne Boleyn.
Mhm.
And it was during
It's of national interest.
right.
It truly is.
He wanted to get his dick sucked.
Mhm.
And so Cranmer encounters like other humanist and Protestant reformers around Europe, and they start to get into his head. Then in 1532, he was appointed ambassador to the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, which he means he's spending more time abroad and he's chatting with more people and hobnobbing with more Protestants.
Fucking slob nobbing.
Yeah.
Ew. Hob on my knob.
Yeah.
Slob on my nobbin with fucking
Trying to get some stank
Emperor
on his hang down.
Charles.
Ew.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. God.
Explain it to me like I'm on TikTok. Okay, he was gobbing on his knob, trying to get some stank finger.
Ew.
So he became
Trying to get his dick
Wet.
You're a lot closer than you might.
Ish. God.
You're not wrong. Because
I'm
during
not wrong. The whole thing is wrong.
he became especially close with a German Lutheran reformer named Andreas Osiander. I don't know how to say that.
Weeza Boudreaux.
This friendship.
Canyon's Weezer.
You totally are. Your laugh.
So this friendship led him to take a very surprising action for an ordained Catholic priest, a very well-known and high-up ordained Catholic priest, which was that he decided to fucking marry
Again?
another woman.
No.
This one named Marguerite, who was the niece of this Lutheran guy that he had befriended.
Weezer's wife.
Weezer's niece.
Weezer's face.
So yes, he'd been married before, but that was before he was like officially a priest. So now
And
that
she died,
And
so
she
it don't
died.
count.
Don't count.
so now the fact that he's marrying as a priest is like
Yeah, scandal, babe.
really scandalous and illegal.
This is like Harry leaving the royal family scandalous.
Yeah.
God.
Mhm.
Get over
And
it.
a lot of priests just like took mistresses. So like he could have done that. And so he actually like made a choice to actually
Yeah.
marry her.
Publicly wed.
Because like taking a mistress was, quote, the prevailing custom among priests for whom celibacy was too rigorous.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Always have a backup.
So scholars believe that by this point, Cranmer's views had undergone a definitive change to become more aligned with the Protestant reformers than the Catholic Church. So now he is a Protestant now, in all but name, in his heart.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Still, his marriage to Marguerite and the 2 children they had together had to remain a secret for the next 15 years because, yeah, it's not done. There are even rumors that she would travel with him in a chest with air holes cut into
No.
it.
Ew.
No.
But these
No.
are it's probably not true because that just sounds horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's
That's
what
like
was said.
the Tyrion Lannister had to cross
Ugh,
the sea in
yeah.
that shed in the crate.
Totes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So anyway.
Yep.
Yep. So, not long after this marriage, Cranmer is called back to England because they're still trying to work on this fucking annulment. At this time, the elderly Archbishop of Canterbury, which is a major deal, it's like on the level of like Secretary of State, basically. Like
Okay.
it's like a big deal, Archbishop of Canterbury. He had just died, and the king needed someone loyal, so he appoints Cranmer to this big time job.
Good job, Cranberry.
And big promotion for Cranberry.
For Cranrias.
And the king now is putting a lot of pressure on him to make this fucking annulment finally fucking happen because Anne Boleyn, they'd like had a secret wedding, even though he wasn't actually divorced.
Okay,
And-
that's always going to turn out well.
And now Anne was pregnant.
Oh,
Bonus points to who can name her child. Who was she pregnant with?
Damien
Elizabeth.
Faye.
Elizabeth.
Got
Queen
it.
Elizabeth the First. Good job.
Fine.
the redhead.
Okay. So, as Archbishop in his new job, Cranmer officially lent his support to the king's cause and declared the marriage to Catherine of Aragon void from the beginning for reasons we're not going to get into, and pronounced that this new marriage to Anne Boleyn was the real one.
Does that mean the child that he had, that Mary was illegitimate?
That's what they claimed.
Okay.
And Mary obviously is not happy about suddenly going from princess and heir apparent to bastard. And also having her mom like shamed and put away and ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah. And her whole religion being taken away from her. Okay, we will get to it.
Etc.
Mary's pissed. Also pissed are just like the common folk because they liked Catherine of Aragon and they recognized that Henry was being an asshole and like this was all bullshit. And also they like started rumors that Anne Boleyn was a witch. Anyway.
It's Princess Diana all over again.
Yeah. So basically this meant that like Cranmer doing this and like following Henry and making this proclamation means that the Pope is out. We're no longer following the Pope. Huge fucking shift. Henry VIII is now the supreme head of the Church of England. This is called the Act of Supremacy. This is the Protestant Reformation, basically. In the years to come, the Church of England, which is the new church, grew its power, and Cranmer remained close to the king and continued to do whatever the fuck Henry wanted, which just got crazier as time went on. So in 1536, Henry became convinced that Anne Boleyn was cheating on him. She probably wasn't. I mean, we're like 99.9% sure she wasn't actually. She just was kind of a flirt. She was a flirt, not a slurt. And he even like accused her of having sex with her own brother, which like definitely did not happen, whatever. And so Cranmer agrees to follow Henry again and declares that this marriage is invalid. And then she gets beheaded. Then in 1540, Cranmer helps Henry get an annulment from his latest wife, which if you're counting, this is now number 4. We skipped over number 3. She was the good one only because she basically died in childbirth and gave him a son.
What was her name?
Jane Seymour.
Oh, yeah, Jane.
So we got
Wasn't Jane Seymour the actress who played
Yes.
Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman?
Yes.
Good call.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
That was a
good memory.
fantastic program.
such a fantastic program.
I watched it with my grandma. That's why I call it a program.
Oh, yeah. Her shows are on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my shows.
Such a great program.
Gotta watch my stories.
Okay,
Not to be confused with program.
No. But there will be those, and we'll get to it. Okay, so we got Catherine of Aragon, then we got Anne Boleyn, then we got Jane Seymour. She gives the son, but then she dies, and Henry always loves her. But he probably would have ended up beheading her at some point anyway if she had lived longer. Mm-hmm. Then he marries Anne of Cleves, doesn't actually like her. He gets pissed. There's like a whole drama about like her portrait. Like Hans Holbein like sends a portrait of Anne of Cleves to Henry VIII, and she looks hot.
Right.
And then she shows up in person, and Henry's like, "You're not as hot as your picture."
Catfish, the first catfishing.
I thought you were called Cleves for a reason.
Loser.
And also he like claimed that she smelled bad, but like he smelled bad.
Yeah.
So like go off, but whatever.
Yeah.
Go
People
off.
who live in smelly houses shouldn't throw Febreze.
So anyway,
Okay.
so they annul this marriage, but they stay friends actually, which is kind of funny. And then in 1542, Cranberry was instrumental in the investigation that resulted in wife number 5.
Good Lord.
Wow.
Her
Went for it.
beheading, also due to supposed cheating, although she probably did actually cheat.
Well,
But it's not really her fault. She was like 19 and Henry was like old and gross and mean.
and
Yeah,
And also
ew, I
she
would
might have
cheat.
been like groomed as a child.
And stanky.
And
Yeah.
very stanky.
He's
He had like an
done.
infected leg.
Oh,
Stop.
I know.
Having smelled
Another
an infected leg.
another stanky leg.
There's an angry fly in here, and he will not leave me alone. Anyway, continue.
Okay.
For the watchers at home.
Anyway, I hope that you have enjoyed that summary of most but not all of Henry's wives. Okay. So he's beheaded number 2 now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's evidence that Cranberry had mixed feelings about his involvement with all of these proceedings because obviously they're bananas and he is just willy-nilly like offering annulments and killing
and
people.
executions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What is agreed upon is that he did seem to be a true believer in the Protestant Reformation. Henry really didn't care about religious details and doctrine as long as he was allowed to do whatever the fuck he wanted.
Right. Let me do me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want my power and my women. And y'all do whatever you want over here.
Right.
Don't involve me.
So Cranmer became instrumental in shaping the new Church of England. And along with Thomas Cromwell, we don't have time to get into it, but you can read Wolf Hall if you're actually interested. He promoted the publication of an English Bible. And this was a big deal because up until then, the Bible had only been in Latin, whatever, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Then Cranberry composed something called a litany for the church, but I couldn't really figure out what that is. I think it's like a prayer that you read during a parade. I don't know. Catholics, let me know. So then...
Or don't. It's fine.
basically, a lot of what... He just is shitting on the Pope, okay?
Yeah.
Really hates the Pope. Henry is famously fickle. But he did seem to have a true fondness for Cranmer, and a lot of Henry's other close friends ended up getting sent to the literal chopping block, but Cranberry sticks around. He's a really good yes man.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, Cranberry's enemies tried to kill him on at least 3 different occasions in elaborate plots, and none of them worked. They tried to get, Henry to kill him. And Henry was like, no, I like that dude. It's fine.
He's chill.
So it's said that Henry had a, quote, curious attachment to him. They were BFFs.
Mm-hmm.
According to one source, quote, the king regarded him with that mixture of awe and amusement that the worldly and selfish bestow on those who appear simple in affairs. He liked him, listened to him, protected him, but allowed him no political influence whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he's just a little yes man to keep in his packet.
He's a Chris Christie.
Mm-hmm. So Cranmer's real influence would come after Henry's death. So Henry dies, and his only son, the one that was born to Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman,
Right. Jane Seymour. Okay.
becomes king, but he's only 9 years old.
That's old enough. You only have a few good years left.
Well, he really did only have a few good years left.
You're cruel.
I peaked when I was 9.
Yeah.
I have been on this downward hill way below the Earth's
with
crust.
those sewing scissors.
Seriously. My really cool asymmetrical haircut and tossing the goose swan scissors
Yeah.
into the bag. Peaked.
I mean, Lucy and I met when we were 8, so imagine becoming king a year later.
This is midlife crisis.
King of the realm.
Which is intentionally vague so you can keep annexing and colonizing more places.
So during
Hopefully
the
he
short
had lunch first.
What's the first thing you would do?
if you
I don't
won
know,
the
go to
king
lunch.
lottery,
Have lunch.
go to lunch.
Go lunch. Lucy's answer. If you won the lottery, what's the first thing you would do? I don't know, go to lunch.
Unless it's night, and then I'd have dinner.
And then I'd have dinner.
I guess if it's morning, I'd have breakfast, but I probably wouldn't
She
be
never
up then.
eats
I don't eat
breakfast.
breakfast.
She never eats breakfast.
That's McDonald's breakfast.
Are you
True.
kidding? True.
It's the only breakfast
but
that's
only then,
suitable.
at 1 second to 11
Yeah.
a.m. so that she can get it at the last minute.
Yeah. Okay, so Edward the Sixth. He's 9. He becomes king. He is a real Protestant because his whole mom would never have been queen if the Catholics had stayed in power. So he's like a real Protestant. He also, all his guardians are like super Protestants. So yeah, he cares a lot more about religion than his dad did.
The 9-year-old?
The 9-year-old.
Okay. Just making sure we're talking about the same person.
Yeah. He's you know.
He's deep into
He's
his Protestant
devout.
era. Okay.
This
deep in his
4th
Protestant
grader
era.
is devout. Okay.
He fucks, but he doesn't because he's Protestant.
Ish. And 9. Okay.
So Cranmer is a really important ally and advisor to the boy king. In 1549, Cranmer writes the New Book of Common Prayer.
The new book of Cranmer Prayer.
Yeah.
Sure.
He writes Bridge to Terabithia.
Oh,
Bridge to Cramnervithia.
I'm going to cry just thinking about that book. God.
But this golden age of Cranberry's religious influence proved to be short-lived, much like the boy king.
Oh, Edward.
Eddie.
So in the summer of 1553, it became clear that young Edward, who had been ill for months, would probably not live to see his 16th birthday.
Ooh,
too
he
devout.
really was
He
middle-aged.
was too devout.
He was upper middle-aged when he took the throne.
Sad.
So the next person in line is supposed to be Mary.
Got it.
And who does Mary really not like?
Elizabeth.
Queen Elizabeth.
And
Yeah.
the dad.
And
the king.
Cranberry. She
Hates
doesn't
Cranberry.
really hates Cranberry.
Why does she hate Cranberry?
Because
Because he took up for her dad.
Yeah, because he was instrumental in her dad, divorcing her mom
Oh,
and
right,
making
right.
her a bastard.
Right.
And Mary is super Catholic, and she's an actual adult, so she can actually make that decision.
But Mary's mother is still alive, right?
No, she died,
was
but she
she-
died naturally.
Okay.
She was like
wasn't.
sent to like some
She wasn't beheaded
castle.
or... Yeah.
Got it.
No, she had too many like powerful relatives to like actually be beheaded. So she just was like sent somewhere to like waste away and die, basically.
Ugh, luck.
Okay. Right? Sounds
What I wouldn't
Sounds
fucking
so
give.
good right now.
relaxing.
Please just send me away.
She
to
didn't have
waste
to do
away.
any chores. She didn't have a
Ugh.
job. She didn't have any more kids.
You
She
know
didn't
what I
have
would
a
love
husband
to do?
to worry about.
Wither on the vine.
Seriously.
Sounds great.
It
All she had to do
sounds
was like
amazing.
sit around and pray and like eat.
Let up, bitch. Wither on the vine.
Okay. So Mary, there's a whole thing. I'm not going to get into it. There's like a different queen for like 9 days, but it doesn't work out. And
But she died because she didn't wear a coat outside on a cold
It
day.
didn't work out.
William Henry Harrison.
it's too complicated. There was the queen for a bit, but Mary was like, fuck no, this is mine. And she takes the throne back in 9 days.
Okay.
So Mary immediately has Cranmer arrested for treason for plotting against her and putting this
Bye,
other
bitch.
queen on the throne. And she's like, fuck you, Cranberry. Now I'm queen and your life is about
Eat
to
my
get
whole
really
asshole.
ick.
Dad.
I thought you were going to end at eat my hole.
Asshole.
in my hole.
Oh.
So she's, basically she's trying to get on with the important work of burning heretics at the stake. And that's where the
Yeah.
whole Bloody Mary thing comes from.
You can't let that
Love.
slide. That stacks up real quick. You got to stay on top of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. You can't just let all these heretics just be running around.
No, they compound.
So Thomas Cranmer is arrested, and
The
he's
Thomas Cranmer affair.
he is officially removed from his position as archbishop, and he is subjected to a lengthy and brutal and very public trial because she's trying to like embarrass the fuck out of him and all Protestants.
Good for her.
But-
What, like it's hard?
Take a look at Mary. We've got pics of Mary on the drive.
She's
too.
exquisite.
Mm.
X, no notes.
Mm-hmm.
She has the most severe face.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Love her.
Mary.
Also,
Love.
just love all these like really crude and bad cartoons of Cranmer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The like wood carvings.
They're
Yeah.
amazing. He's melting in most of them.
Yeah.
Weezer's not looking too great himself, though.
He's got a lopsided hat in every single one.
a
Mary's face. I can't.
Yeah.
She
Her
looks
fucking
so
face.
pissed off.
Yeah, she's
No
she's out
brows.
for
She's J-Lo
blood.
after the Grammys talking to
Yes.
Ben Affleck.
After
Yeah.
she wiped off her brows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Her brows
fuck 'em.
are.
She's
Who
got
needs
some
'em?
2000s brows.
Can someone explain to me the young people trend of bleaching your eyebrows?
Yeah.
I'm seeing it all over the place. Y'all. Jonathan Van Ness just did it
I
to
know.
keep up with the kids.
And it's not.
It's not good.
I love him, but no,
What are y'all
think I like
thinking?
it.
not it. Actually, I can't answer the eyebrow question for Mary though. So it used to be like
syphilis.
no, I don't know why
Everything
it became
was
in
syphilis.
fashion, but it became fashionable to have a huge forehead as a woman.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You know this because you always talk about how you would thrive.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're
So
supposed
your
to have
forehead looked bigger.
So they would even like, shave their heads back so they could have like
Yeah.
a really high forehead. And that was true in the Middle Ages too. It was actually starting to like
Wow.
be more tame by this period. But for a
Bring
while,
it back. I'll shave back my hairline.
Bring it
Let's
all
go.
the way back.
Bring it all the way back. I want the Reformation, please.
but only for women, not for men.
Right.
Okay, so she burns about 300 heretics in
Give
a
or
span
take.
of just like a few years. So she's cruising.
Mm.
But it's not enough. And she doesn't want to just execute Cranberry right away because she wants to get like some good propaganda out of this.
Some
Because
momentum.
he's so high profile. So she wants, what she really wants is for him to publicly recant his Protestant beliefs before he dies.
Did she want him to like be so afraid of her like ramping up these efforts that he would recant in order to not be executed at all? Or was she wanting him to recant right before he was executed because she wanted him dead regardless?
Well, she wanted him dead regardless, but he thought there was a chance that if he recanted, he would be saved. And we are about to get to it.
Okay.
So at first, she tries the good cop approach. So she moves him out of prison where he'd been for 2 years at this point into the home of the dean of Christ Church with the hope that like being in a nice, comfy, cushy environment surrounded by other religious BFFs, then he could be like persuaded to
Sure.
renounce and come back to Catholicism.
Okay.
And it worked. So whereas a lot of people were like, no, like these are my beliefs and it's the fucking Tudor period.
He's like, I don't believe in shit.
Yeah,
Let's go.
literally-
You want me to denounce? I'll denounce. Is it going to keep me fucking
His
alive?
horrible college professor kind of
made him
Made him-
pliable.
yeah. Oh, it did
Yeah.
save his life.
Yeah.
Never sure
It
about
saved him.
anything. Well, yeah. Okay.
So, believing that he would be in the clear if he agreed to these recantations, Cranmer, who had already, again, converted from being, studying to become a priest, deciding, nope, don't want to be a priest, I'm
I
getting
want to
married.
fuck.
Oh,
Yeah.
my wife dies, I guess I will be a priest. Oh, I don't want to be Catholic anymore.
Oh, I wanna
guess
fuck
I'm going to
again.
be Protestant. Now he's saying, now he's flip-flopping again to save his skin, and he's like, okay, fuck Protestantism, I'm a
Protestants, yeah,
Catholic
yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he signs 4 recantations in which he recognizes the authority of Queen Mary and declares that the Pope is the head of the church and that there is not like a Church of England. It's just the Catholic
the
Church.
and it's this one, and deal with it. Mhm.
But this wasn't enough for Mary. She really wanted Cranmer to beg. So he's returned to prison and his execution date is set. And he's like, wait.
I feel like you have a lot in common with Mary.
Yeah.
She wanted him to say it.
into her crotch.
I don't feel like you meant it when you said exactly what I wanted you to say.
Yeah, I didn't.
over
It
for a
didn't
quick
pass
chat.
the vibe check.
I didn't feel it.
Yeah. Make
What
me
are
feel
you
it.
sorry
Make me believe
for?
It. Yeah. Yes.
What are you sorry for?
That's a great lie.
I want to hear
Yeah.
you say it.
So, obviously freaked out because he's like, I did what you said. I did what you asked. And now you sent me from this nice, cozy house back to prison.
Yeah, something's off.
Something's off.
Something's off.
Just 2 days later, Cranmer writes his 5th recantation in which he renounces all of his Protestant beliefs. He's like, there's no salvation outside of the Catholic Church. And he announces his, quote, joy at returning to the true faith. He's like, oh, really? For realsies? I'm a Catholic again. Like,
No, I love it
love
here.
it.
I love it.
I was just kidding last time.
No, I swear I love it.
so under normal canon law at this point, because he just like so thoroughly recanted, he wouldn't be considered a heretic anymore and he should be allowed to live, right?
He'd be reformed, if you will.
Yeah. So his execution should have been canceled. But Mary was still pissed. So instead, she just is like,
And another thing.
yeah. So she just is like, I'll delay your execution, but you're still.
But we're gonna do
Yeah.
it, though.
Yeah.
But
I'm not gonna do it.
Still gonna do it.
I did.
I'm
It's gonna make you sweat for a little bit.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to
I'm
do
not
it.
gonna do it.
I'm not gonna do
Girl,
it.
I'm not gonna do it.
I did
Girl,
it.
I did it. Girl, I'm not gonna do it.
I did a
So-
I
thing.
did it. I did a thing.
Cranmer issues one final recantation,
The
which is this is his 6th,
Oh, 6.
which is a sweeping confession of sin. So he's just listing all of his sins. He's like, you know what? I'm a piece of shit. You're amazing. I'm so sorry.
He's throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks.
Mm-hmm.
But Mary has no interest in being merciful, and the jig was up, and his final execution date is set.
I mean, I'm relieved.
So Cranmer was told he would be
This
able
nightmare's finally over.
to
for
make
me.
one.
For me.
Been a lot.
It's been a lot for me.
Tom's house got broken into and
I confronted the burglar, and
Say I'm a little stressed out.
Cranberry was thrown in
For
prison, and he issued
So,
4
yeah, I'm under a lot of
recantations,
stress.
and then
And-
his
but he
execution
issued
date
4.
was delayed, and then he issued a final true reclamation, and then
I'm
car
under
rolled
a
5
lot
times.
of stress. This car rolled 5 times.
and now he's a Catholic, but he was married. It's fine.
And he confronted the heretics. And then
So he's allowed. He's basically allowed to write a speech that will be his like last words, and it's supposed to be one final recantation.
I hope it's that.
And he confronted the heretics. And
So yeah, you could say I've been stressed.
And I converted 5 times. I need to write that whole thing out.
Right? Please write the Thomas Cranmer, Erica Jane recantation. And he confronted the heretic.
I'll write it. I'm going to write it and send it to you guys in a voice memo.
And he
later
wrote the Book
tonight.
of Common Prayer, which is like in English, and also like there was like a litany of things, like a literal litany,
A literal
things.
litany of bullshit.
like a literal litany though.
No, but like not to be
I don't even know what it is.
confused with the
Like a
liturgy.
literal liturgy.
Okay.
Wow.
So they're like, okay, write out your last words, and you can read them from the stake. I keep saying scaffold, but they're burning people at
Yeah.
this time.
Yeah.
It's a bonfire.
Yeah. And so he writes it, and they pre-approve it. Basically, they're like, yeah, this looks good. But then, on the day of his execution, in a shocking turn of events,
Oh, that bitch.
he deviates from his pre-approved speech and he recants his previous recantations.
Yes,
Whoa.
Cranberry, you're such a nuisance. I love it.
And declares, quote, "And as for the Pope, I refuse him as Christ's enemy and Antichrist with all his false doctrine."
Ooh.
So he's like, psych, I didn't mean it. I'm still a Protestant. I'm not a Catholic. And this is in front of a big crowd of people, like a huge crowd of people.
And the Pope can fuck off.
And the Pope can fuck off and Mary can fuck off because, like, what worse shit is she going to do to him? She's burning him alive.
Right.
So, like, he has nothing to lose. So when he burned, he also made a point of thrusting his right hand deeper into the fire. And this was, like, the hand that had written his previous recantation. So he was trying to be like, I renounce thee,
Oh my
writing
God.
hand.
Ew.
As
How dramatic.
Yes, such a drama queen.
Fucking
Such a drama
relax.
king.
Fucking relax.
God.
So as one obviously Protestant source put it, quote, "The proximity of death restored his faith and his dignity." Debatable.
Okay.
Okay, guy.
Mary I's government tried to counteract some of the damage of this dramatic scene because, like, this was not what they wanted to happen. It was a real setback.
Not good PR.
No.
Soup's not what they were looking for.
So they published a pamphlet that included all of his first recantations and
They
not what
loved
he said.
pamphlets.
They love pamphlets.
They love their pamphlets.
To this day, Cranmer's true beliefs remain a subject of some debate, but I found this quote of his to be most apt. Quote, "What the heart loves, the will chooses, and the mind justifies."
Oh, wow.
I love that.
And that is my case of the flip-flopping reformer, the not Thomas Cranberry.
I
Wow.
loved it.
That
you.
was phenomenal.
Thank you.
Love that Cran Raz.
Are you ready for my case?
Maybe.
No.
Well, this was before I knew what Kenyon was actually covering, and I thought, like, oh, this has the potential to be a really sad episode. Then Kenyon took care of that. But
I mean,
so I
300
wanted-
people were burnt alive in my case, but
Well,
yeah.
yeah, but I didn't know them.
You're right.
I didn't.
It was
You
long
didn't do
enough
what you
ago.
like to do.
It
Yeah,
was-
where you make us fall in love with the character and then you kill them off. So I just wanted to focus on a story with a happy ending, a story of reformation and redemption for one ex-con who we all know very well, Danny Trejo.
Ooh.
Oh, with the tattoos and the long hair and the scars.
Danny Trejo.
Danny fucking
Can't be
Trejo. Yeah,
confused
there's
with
photos of
anyone
him on the
else.
drive.
He's Danny
Yeah.
fucking Trejo.
Icon Danny Trejo. Possibly the most famous and, like, quote unquote successful, but because of a lot of resources, which we'll get to, tale of a reformed prisoner that I could find. And there is so much about this man that I did not know, so buckle up and enjoy this ride.
Okay.
So Danny was born on May 16th, 1944, a Taurus, which seems absolutely spot on, and grew up in Echo Park, Los Angeles, California, with his parents, well, not with his parents, but of his parents, Dolores Rivera King and Dionisio Trejo. Their household was not a happy one. Danny was conceived while Dolores's actual husband was fighting overseas in World War II, having met Dionisio at a dance hall in late 1943.
Oh.
I mean,
So she had a little, I mean,
it was a
if you can't be
war.
with the one you love the one you're with.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that what they say?
Did you just write your wedding vows?
I mean, if he's not careful.
Listeners, submit the worst possible wedding vows for Amanda to
Tweet at her.
noodle on.
Great. I can't wait for the dramatic reading of all of those tweets.
That'll be my
so,
speech.
Yeah. You're not giving a speech, but that'll be great.
Good. Thank
Dolores was not.
We're giving a speech.
You're on my list of do not mic.
Do not
with
let
like
this person get the mic.
with like a headshot.
No.
Of
My
you.
voice carries.
So
I don't need a mic.
Yeah.
my wedding planner knows.
Well, we'll
Not
just
doing
sing Wizard Women a cappella at your rehearsal dinner is what we'll do.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Okay.
That is exactly what I want. So, Dolores was not in Danny's life much, especially after Dionisio banned her from seeing him after Danny came home from her care with a sprained arm as a child. This may sound like a father protecting his child, but it was more about control. I mean, kids get hurt.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
it is what it is.
Okay.
Dionisio worked in construction, but took on some unsavory extracurriculars, even having to flee Los Angeles in the late 1940s because he was wanted in LA for stabbing a guy.
Oh my
So
God.
it wasn't about protecting Danny. It was because he was doing his own shit.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
And Danny Trejo was pretty candid throughout his like life as a famous person that his father was abusive to him.
Okay.
So we know that Dionisio is not a good dude.
Okay.
So they lived in San Antonio, Texas for about a year before Dionisio finally returned to Los Angeles and turned himself in. Unable to care for his son while serving time, Danny was sent to live with his grandmother, who was also caring for a couple of his cousins at the time. And when he was with his father, he was cared for by his stepmother, Alice Mendias, who he remembers as, quote, his only source of comfort in his father's house.
Oh,
Yeah.
poor baby
With
Danny.
So sad for baby Danny, and it's like worse than I ever could have imagined. So with very little structure and stability and a father who was in and out of jail and abusive when he was home, it wasn't a big shock that Danny would be inclined to self-medicate. So when his uncle, who was more like an older brother at only 8 years his senior, introduced him to drugs at the age of 7 years old, and like at a young age, Danny was already familiar with and using marijuana, heroin, and cocaine.
At 7?
7.
That's younger than the boy king.
I know.
Oh.
Yeah. So
How
around
would
this
he even
time,
survive using heroin at 7?
well, I mean, around this time, Danny had walked in on his uncle using heroin. So the first time that Danny used heroin was because he saw his uncle using it, and his uncle introduced him to it.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, his uncle, who is like his older brother,
Yeah.
and his uncle has and had, I don't believe he's with us any longer, but a lot of these poor boys were definitely the product of their circumstances,
Yeah.
and it was not a good situation.
So his uncle is like 14, 15 and helping.
His uncle is 8 years older than him.
Right.
Yeah, so he's, a teenager.
Right.
And is involved in some not great shit
Yeah.
himself. And so when his
Yeah.
nephew / little brother walks in on him, he's like, oh, no, it's okay. Like, it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
You should try this. And so he tries heroin for the first time. And that's also when he overdosed for the first
You
time.
don't say.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and needed medical intervention, but obviously survived. And around this age, so 7, 8 years old, Danny participated in his first drug deal because he's like looking up to his uncle. And he says, quote, he was like the cool one, he reflected. He was the one that always had the big wad of cash.
Yeah.
So
Of
it's like,
course.
okay,
And a
I
lot
can
of
survive.
criminal gangs will use kids as drug runners because
Totally.
they won't.
They're less suspected.
They're less suspected,
Yeah.
and even if they get caught, they're not gonna like face time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Danny looked up to his uncle and wanted to be like him and wanted to have income. And
Yeah.
there you go. Quote, things rapidly escalated from there, with Trejo becoming addicted and joining his uncle on robberies and drug deals to satisfy their habits.
Well, he had
He
such
let-
nice, tiny hands.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like a
He landed in
chimney sweep of crime.
Yeah.
Oh, God. You can pick those locks.
Mm-hmm.
He landed in juvenile hall within a year and was 18 when his activities first landed him in jail, at which point Trejo also became addicted to cocaine. So at the age of 10, he has his first brush with the law. He's caught selling drugs. By age 12, he gets his first stint with incarceration, but it's not prison because he's 12. So he was picked up for dealing drugs. He spends some time at East Lake Juvenile Hall in 1956. And from there, he's in and out of jails and prisons for a number of years. During one LA County jail stay in 1961, Danny had the displeasure of meeting Charles Manson. Yes, that Charles Manson.
Ooh.
He hated him immediately, describing him as, quote, a dirty, greasy, scrawny white boy who was allegedly a talented hypnotist.
Yeah, pretty much
And
summed it up.
Yeah, and he said that Charles Manson hypnotized him while they were, in a holding cell together.
No thanks.
Yeah, really hated him.
Ugh.
So, isn't that so
That's
weird?
spooky. I don't like it.
Yeah, it's really creepy. So in the early days of his career in crime, he was mostly picked up on petty drug offenses or robberies to get his own drugs. But things really escalated after he spent more time in and out of prison, which, as we've discussed many times and in recidivism crimes, is basically exactly what the prison system does.
Mm-hmm.
It creates a profitable revolving door.
Mm-hmm.
And then you learn through this subculture on the inside how to survive both on the inside and on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a snake eating its own tail. So as time went on, his crimes became more violent. He would be assigned by higher level drug dealers to collect debts from clients because he was a really good fighter. He had gotten into boxing and stuff, especially being in and out of prison.
So he was fucking some people up, probably.
Oh, he absolutely was. And he would witness or participate in some serious violence. His uncle and also prison, just in general, got him into boxing around this time, and he channeled a lot of energy into the sport, becoming a champion in San Quentin's lightweight and welterweight divisions. And apparently he was a champion in absolutely every prison that he was in boxing. That's how good he was at it.
So he's
in prison.
God.
Yeah, to be a fucking lightweight
Champion fighter
champion
in
boxer
prison.
in San Quentin.
Yeah.
Wow, I did not know this about Danny Trejo.
He has a really wild upbringing. But despite, his love and dedication to boxing, he was still deep in the grip of a drug addiction. And no matter how much he loved boxing, it's not going to ever be enough to pull him out of the spiral of addiction.
Fucking awash with drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which we talked about.
But things would shift in a big way in 1968 while Danny was incarcerated at Soledad in California. A riot broke out in the prison during Cinco de Mayo, and in the chaos, Danny struck a guard with a rock that he threw. And we actually don't even know if he intentionally hit the guard, if he was protecting himself, if he was just part of the fracas. Mm-hmm. But he threw a rock, it hit a guard, and he was punished to the fullest extent that they could punish him. So he was put in solitary confinement, and despite not critically injuring the guard, was faced with capital charges for assault that could have resulted in the death penalty.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Jesus Christ.
Yep. So while in solitary, Danny really faced the reality of his life and turned his attention to completing his high school education, devoting himself to God, and participating in 12-step recovery.
Wow.
Quote, I was sitting in the hole and it's I knew it's all over, he said. It's just done. I'm through. I'm 24 years old and I'm through.
Oh.
He was just a baby.
He's 24.
24.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's amazing he's not dead.
even a real age. Yeah.
No, he started doing fucking heroin when he was 7.
Oh,
so
my
insane.
God.
And he survived to have this revelation. I already loved him before I covered this, but learning so much about him, I am just so in love with Danny Trejo. And he is it's a miracle that he made it this far and he is the exception.
Yeah.
This is not, I could see this story being weaponized into, see, the system works,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. But it's this man saved himself despite some awful
exception.
circumstances. Prison did not reform him. So I just want to make my opinion of that very clear. So he said, while he's, talking to himself in solitary, quote, "God, if you're there, then it's going to be all right. And if you're not, I'm screwed." And that was my prayer. I've never forgotten it. And that was just a complete turning point in my life. So ultimately, they didn't go through with capital charges, and Danny was not sentenced to death and was in fact released from prison about a year later in 1969 with an entirely new lease on life.
That's pretty astonishing. And today that would not be the case.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But I do think that a contribution to him not being charged with more and him being released, in fact, early from the original sentence that landed him in there was likely him completely changing like his entire way of life. I mean, this man literally like quit drugs cold turkey in prison, and finished his high school degree, like all of these great things that he was like, nope, I'm not fucking doing this. I'm doing this instead. I'm going to use the limited resources that I have in here to figure this out. And I think that also contributed to his early release. So he leaves in 1969 and he would never touch drugs or step foot in prison again as a prisoner anyway, from that moment on. So it's like an actual miracle. Well, we'll get to it. So when he was released, he worked in construction. He worked as a gardener. He worked as a salesperson. He was, for a time, part owner of a lawn care company. He got his license in drug and alcohol counseling and worked as a counselor.
He has lived a life.
He's lived a major
bunch.
life. There are so many amazing things that Danny might have done with his life, but a chance encounter in the 1980s would really send his life in a direction that he could never have seen coming.
He's basically a method actor, but just because he
lived it. Yep.
He's not even an actor yet. He's just a method.
At this point, he's just the method. The acting hasn't even come yet. So while working as a substance use disorder counselor, Danny got a call to help with the growing cocaine use issues on the set of the 1985 film Runaway Train.
Sorry.
This is the most 80s sentence ever. It's like,
We got
can you
a runaway
imagine?
train on the set of Runaway Train.
A fucking
We're
cokeheads.
running a train on the set of Runaway Train.
No one can remember their lines. We can't shoot until 4 p.m.
Well, that's true. Of
We
this
need you,
podcast,
Trejo.
too.
Yeah, it does sound like this podcast. Anyway, we need Danny Trejo. While he's there working with members of the cast and crew, the writer of the film actually recognized him from prison time that they served together years prior and like took a shine to him, like remembered him being a super nice guy in prison.
Oh.
And also remember that in prison, he was a boxing champion. And there's a boxing scene in this movie that he wrote and was now not directing, but like producing. So he's on set and he's making recommendations, whatever.
Yeah, he's like, this guy's a fucking phenomenal boxer and he's got a great look to him.
Well, so he was like,
Great look.
this guy's a fucking phenomenal boxer. He should train lead actor in this movie, Eric Roberts, how to box. And then loved his now like iconic hardened look and put him in the film first as an extra. And then he got a little like upgrade to actually getting to play opposite Eric Roberts in the boxing scene as his boxing opponent. So he didn't have any lines, but this guy's like, I'm putting you in my movie and you're going to be an on-site trainer. So these additional roles on set earned him about $350 a day in 1985. That's good fucking money, which was a huge hit for him at the time. So quote, like in a, not hit, like boost, sorry. Quote, when I got my first paycheck, I thought they made a mistake. He did so well on set that, like I said, he was offered the role of Eric Roberts' boxing opponent in the film, and from there became a noticeably recurring actor in the specific role of quote-unquote rough Mexican inmate or ex-con.
Little typecast.
Yeah. Trejo later confessed to being oblivious to the typecasting as a prisoner in similar roles for years to follow. Quote, I didn't know I was being stereotyped. I just knew I was working.
Yeah.
And he was. He consistently landed small parts in action films throughout the 80s, having made about a dozen movies by 1990, and more importantly, having carved out space in Hollywood where he was becoming more and more recognized and just loved by cast and crew and fans.
He's just making
Everyone
good
loved
connections
working
'cause
with
he's
him.
a good guy and
Yep, he's very talented and he's just like
memorable.
memorable and apparently just the sweetest
So actually,
person to work
my
with.
cousin worked with him on a movie and said he was the sweetest person to work with, an absolute sweetheart. And I can't remember the name of the movie right now, so I'm trying to figure it out.
Step Up to the Streets.
It's not Step Up to the Streets, although my cousin was in that movie.
We
I don't know if you
know.
know that.
If Danny Trejo had been in Step Up to the Streets.
I need to figure
Game
out
over.
what movie it is.
Well, I think there are ways to find
I'm
out.
trying.
I love it. Keep it moving.
Cyborg X.
There it is. Knew it.
Danny Trejo
It's basically
is-
Step
is-
Up to the Streets.
is captain of a machine gun, and my cousin Jake Stormone plays Lieutenant Wiskowski, or Wiz.
Wow.
Mike Wazowski.
Mike
Mike
Wazowski.
Wazowski.
Lieutenant Wiskowski.
I'm
you
sorry.
didn't do your paperwork.
Sorry, Jake, I haven't seen this movie, but it looks great.
You
We're
haven't
gonna
seen
get
Cyborg
wasted and
2?
watch it.
Cyborg X.
Oh.
From 2016.
Idiot.
I got Step
you
Up
haven't
2.
seen Cyborg.
And the quote is, half man, half machine, no mercy.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'm watching that tonight. Anyway, so Danny would say his role in the 1991 film Blood In, Blood Out was the turning point in his career from bit parts to international recognition. And yeah, it's a gross name. But this film was a challenge for him emotionally. Danny recalls feeling uncomfortable around many of the other actors during rehearsals as they were much more established than him. And as if that isn't stressful enough, this movie filmed scenes at San Quentin where he often experienced flashbacks to his time there, especially while filming scenes in C550, his former cell.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Poor guy.
Poor Danny.
Oh, that would be really,
Really hard.
really, really hard. Oh, shit.
Mhm. Yeah. So God bless him. The 90s were a very hot time for Danny Trejo.
Yeah.
Landing a role in Heat alongside Val Kilmer, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Jon Voight, to name a few. There are like a ton of other famous people in that movie.
Yeah.
He'd reunite on screen with Jon Voight in the iconic Anaconda, which is absolutely worth a rewatch if you've been wondering, like, this is your sign to rewatch Anaconda.
If you've been
Go do it.
searching
Noodling.
to the heavens
Yeah.
For a
pondering
sign.
for a
Yep.
sign.
This is your sign.
Okay.
And something I did not know about the filming of this iconic movie, filming was originally in Brazil, but moved locations to Venezuela, where Danny would love to go out and experience the local culture after filming wrap for the day, but also like wasn't being put up in a super great hotel either. So like he didn't have a whole lot of other options. It's like, I have to go eat. I'm just going to go eat with the locals, right? So they were filming during a particularly tumultuous time politically with a coup brewing against the government.
Oh.
And on one occasion, Danny was mugged at gunpoint, but not just any gun, an AK-47.
That's worse than Shakira being attacked by a feral hog.
By
yeah.
hogs, AK-40 hogs. By some like armed teenagers, part of this rebellion, who wanted his combat boots. He was wearing like a really rad pair of combat boots. So he handed them over and was like largely unfazed by this encounter, but did leverage it into a higher salary for his role in the film and to be moved to a nicer hotel where he wouldn't have to leave the grounds for the rest of shooting.
Yeah.
So he was like, yeah, they took my boots. There's a whole coup situation. They're in their coup era.
I don't want to
Coup
be
brewing.
at the Holiday Inn. I want to be at the Marriott.
Yup, with room service.
Yeah.
And like a gate.
Please and thank you. And he fucking got it.
Good.
And a year after that, he's making fucking Con Air with Nick Cage, who he described as, quote, cool as hell. So he hit a bit of a snag in the early 2000s when his years of drug use caught up with him and he was diagnosed with hepatitis C, which I guess he was saying that like he either wouldn't have contracted or wouldn't have had such a hard time with if he hadn't already done so much damage to his body. Like Hep C is a virus. It's not like that hard to get. But anyway,
It's
he had
extremely serious. And yeah, you can,
It is
you can
extremely
get it
serious.
from intravenous drug use and
Mhm.
yeah, among other things. Yeah.
But he was not using when he contracted.
Well, no, it can be dormant, and then you realize you have it later when you're not using. Yeah.
Correct. Exactly. So at the time, he was filming Bubble Boy with Jake Gyllenhaal / Topher Grace.
Slash that other one.
Slash Ewan McGregor. Who was the third?
Not Ewan McGregor. It's the one who actually played Spider-Man.
Not Tom Holland.
Not Tom Holland.
Tobey Maguire.
Tobey Maguire. Fuck me up. Anyway, I'll never get it. So, folks on set noticed that he was unwell, and he described himself as having been pale and weak throughout production and preoccupied with keeping his diagnosis a secret within Hollywood for fear of reprisal. So Trejo was, quote, out of it and struggling to remember his lines due to a prescription medication, but made a full recovery in 2002 and had an incredible continuation of his career. Some of the projects that he worked on throughout the 2000s were Triple X.
Oh! Wait, he was in Triple X?
Yeah, but not as a very big part. I don't remember it either, but he was in
I'm just assuming he was in everything.
He was in everything.
He was in the live action Cinderella.
Cyborg
Pretty much.
X.
Cyborg X, Once Upon a Time in Mexico, Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy, The Devil's Rejects, Snoop Dogg's Hood of Horror, Delta Farce, Grindhouse, Rob Zombie's Halloween, Urban Justice with Steven Seagal, Valley of Angels.
Steven Seagal is supposed to be like the worst human on the planet.
Oh, yeah, he's a fucking monster.
Yeah, I can see that.
He also was in a fuck ton of shows that were like cult followed in the 2000s, like Monk, Desperate Housewives, Breaking Bad, and he voiced the character Enrique on King of the Hill as a recurring character.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Now he's probably most known for his headlining roles in Quentin Tarantino's Grindhouse and Machete films.
As well as Cyborg X.
As well as Cyborg X, which the Machete franchise, he considers that Machete to be like the first Mexican superhero. And he was reflecting on being in Machete and how like he currently lives in a predominantly Mexican neighborhood in California. And he's like, kids come to my house at Halloween dressed as Machete. And he's like, I fucking love it. It's like I got to be this superhero for these amazing kids.
So
I think it's
and also
phenomenal.
dressing a baby like a toddler as Danny Trejo would be so fucking
It'd be
cute.
so cute.
The rest of your case, I'm just Googling toddler Danny Trejo.
As you should. But obviously, this case, in the limited time I had to go over it, only scratches the surface of Danny's robust career. His on-screen appearances are only dwarfed by his abundance of voice acting roles in movies, television, and video games, as well as music video appearances. Like, this man has been on fire and still is on fire, even while he enjoys slightly less demanding filming schedule. But he just loves trying new things. There is a particularly hilarious photo of Danny Trejo on the drive, which will be on the blog, where he is doing an appearance on Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen, and the challenge was a taco contest among the chefs, and the winner gets their taco recipe featured at Trejo's Tacos, one of his many restaurants.
Oh my God.
And so the photo reveal, it's from the reveal of like the celebrity guest, and they like lift up this platter top, and it's just his head, like with a bunch of fruit around it. It's so fucking funny. He's clearly having like the best time.
All right, I couldn't find any
obsessed.
toddlers dressed as Danny Trejo, but I found one like maybe like 6 or 7 year old.
Perfect. That'll do. Just make it smaller.
Yeah.
In 2021, Danny participated in season 5 of The Masked Singer, where despite the judges thinking he was Danny DeVito while he was in his costume, he left an amazing impression on them and the audience as the raccoon. So he was in a raccoon costume.
The Masked Singer is
it's bizarre to me, but it is kind of
sign
funny.
of the end times.
I love it.
Like, I'm pretty sure the Roman Empire had the Masked Singer right before
Probably.
the fall.
But that's fine with me. If this is what's ushering us into the end, I'm fine with that.
It's about time.
It's about time. He also got into the fast-paced world, like I said, of restaurant ownership and has opened a series of successful restaurants in LA over the years. So if you're in the Los Angeles area, check out Trejo's Tacos, Trejo's Cantina, and Trejo's Coffee and Donuts.
Trejo's Trays.
He also Trejo's Trays.
Hose.
Oh, yum. Trejo's and hoes.
Trejo's pantyhose.
Oh my God, I'd wear those. I'd wear those. He also wrote and released a cookbook in 2020 called Trejo's Tacos, Recipes and Stories from LA. And a year later, he published his memoir, Trejo, My Life in Crime, Redemption, and Hollywood. So there are lots of ways to go deeper into this story and experience it entirely from his perspective, which I think is so fucking cool. Through it all, Danny Trejo has remained humble, loving, and generous. Giving back to and supporting his community is at the forefront of everything that he does. Quote, everything good that's ever happened to me has happened as a direct result of helping someone else.
Aww.
Everything. Anybody that says they're my friend, you tell them, open the trunk of your car. And they'll have thermal socks, they'll have thermal underwear, they'll have t-shirts to pass out to the homeless, because that's one of the requirements of being my friend, is that you've got to give back.
Oh.
And that's my story about Danny Trejo.
Oh my God.
Not all
Can you
Dannys.
believe? Not all Danny.
The only good Danny ever.
Danny DeVito.
God bless.
Danny DeVito.
Well, yeah, Danny DeVito is amazing.
Danny Zuko.
Danny's
Danny Zuko is not great. Okay, anyway, that was amazing. Special thanks.
Special thanks to Hannah
O'Sullivan.
This was a great topic, and I'm sorry I misunderstood.
great.
And if you're really pissed, I'll do a different. No, I won't. But
I'm
thank
not
you
sorry.
so much.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.